there's a few things when we start with the warm-up, but a few basics of splicing is when we try and go through the rope, we want to go through clean.
好，就是当你想要用这根导绳机推过绳子的时候，你要很干净的通过，就是你不希望把里面这些一股一股的绳子给挑开。你要穿过去的地方，啪一声就是你挑到纤维就不好，要重来，抽出来重推。
The trick is to try and open your hand flat and grab the rope with your thumb.
然后把你的手先摊平，然后用大拇指和食指去捏住绳子。
And then later on, you can learn to use your fingers to like control this end. Once you got that done, then you can.
等你熟练之后，就可以再用中指和无名指去把绳子推松。
You can do all sorts. When we start on our mark, we look at the rope. You can see there's like a V in the rope where the strands cross.
仔细的看绳子，那个纤维交错地方会有一个 V 型。
There's one strand going that way, one that way. That's going to be the V that we talk about.
然后它们一左一右的纤维就构成一个 V 型。
But anyway, we'll refer to that often. So what we want to avoid is actually struggle to do that kind of thing. So you can see I've split that strand.
所以他希望穿到绳子对面之后，也是把对面的 V 型抽开。
You guys look. That strand has been split by the foot. So we want to avoid that. That's no good. So when you come through like that, if you see that, then come back and go.
像他刚刚这样就是穿到一股纤维，快把纤维挑断，它就会退回去。
The other thing is trying to make sure we go through the center. So if we start there, trying to go through an angle where you have less strands on one side and more on the other.
尽量去避免两边的纤维数不相等，这样尽量从中间贯穿绳子。
It's all about balance. So you want everything to be
他说最重要是平衡，越平衡越好，越不会断。
So we've got our two marks. That's the 250. That was the 250, and that is the 150.
好，就是前面这个是25公分的记号，后面是额外15公分的记号。
And what we'll do, find our mark.
我们先用后面比较远的那一个记号戳一个洞。
You can kind of like, if you're gripping it nicely, it takes a lot of practice, but when you start getting comfortable, you can actually open the braid up, and you can almost keep it. You can almost keep it open, so it's quite easy to work with.
他说，当你熟悉怎么抓绳子之后，你可以很轻易的让它维持在开的状态，然后用很轻的力就可以把导绳机推过去。
If we don't have these fits, then we
如果
can
没有
use
这种
one of
瑞典
these.
式的
So
导绳器，也可以用另外一种。
you can line that up. You get yourself ready. We'll get to that in a second.
好，我们待会再继续讲。如果没有那一个导绳器要怎么办？
So just take a step back. The difference in these is these fits are really good for a lot of different uses. I'm not going to go into too many details, but the best is they're really good for opening rope.
他说他们有很多功能，然后它最好就是用来把绳子撑开，
And splices like
最
these,
重要的功能。
you can push the fit in quite far, and then it's when you pass that through, because the fit tapers, it grips the rope, so it's quite easy to work with. On these fits, we'll use these later. They have a small hook in the back.
有一个小铁钩。
Right. When you find your right size rope, it should fit.
然后它会有各式各样的口径，所以你找到对应的那个导绳器和绳子的时候，
And it should be like a nice size. You know, you don't want like that's not good. Right. So when you're matching the sizes, you look for the one that is the closest size to the rope.
找一个最接近的口径去塞。
So we're going to do it with this one today because that's how you guys will be doing it.
然后今天我们大家都是用最小号的口径去做。
Another thing is when the rope is new, it's much easier to get into the fit. As we put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out, it gets fluffy. But you can see the difference. It gets a bit more challenging.
头烂掉之后会比较难喂进去导绳器里面。
That was nice and easy. So try not to manipulate the rope too much. Like,
好， 不要太常玩弄你的绳子，先让它头维持了那么的轻啊。
So, found our load up on the fib, we're hooked, we found our second mark.
然后找到第二个记号，就比较远的那一个。
Try, this is like, you have to kind of visualize it. Try not to do things where if you imagine the rope is flat, okay?
想象绳子是平的。
So, one second. So we got a couple of dotted lines down this.
它在绳子这个表面先做记号点起来。
Not all rope is round. That like.
他说不是所有绳子都是圆形的。
Rope is generally a little bit more of a rectangle, and it's flat, so it's flat on one side.
有点，大部分绳都有点方方的。
When we start this splice, we want to make sure that we don't, by accident, start doing stuff like this, where we get lots of. Doesn't happen, it's interesting. Don't exaggerate. Like it doesn't. We don't want to do that. Where we have, you can see the dotted line is twisting around. We want it to be.
你不希望绕开的时候，绳子有任何的旋转、扭转这样。
So, to start off, we've got our size position, we've got our dots. Fold that over. We line up our dots, and we come through. We can double check. We're nice and.
检查一下有没有都在同一个平面上，那些点。
So, pass that one through until our first mark, that one.
然后刚刚不是做一个25公分记号，只要它跑出来为止，再停。
I'm going to draw on this side again. I'm quite lazy, but when we mark the rope side later, when you guys do it, I would suggest marking the rope all the way around.
他说他很懒，所以他用纸随便画一条线。他建议你们是画一整圈，会比较好找记号。
And that again is just to make sure the rope is straight, no twists.
一样再把绳子拉平、拉直，然后确定它没有任何的扭转。
Load up our foot, and then we're doing the same thing again. Talking the rope. Right.
我觉得刚刚差不多的步骤，再穿回
So
原来那一条绳子里。
we're lined up. We're not split. We're in the middle. We pass that rope through.
然后检查一下穿过去的时候没有把任何纤维挑断，然后在绳子正中间。
And that will create a lock. In reality, that is actually strong enough. That's carrying all the load for this kind of splice.
他说用这种编织法的话，在现实生活中做到这一步就已经够了，他已经可以负重了，也不会松脱了。
You'll never pull that undone because it's not possible.
然后你不可能把它拉开，因为它就是已经固缩。
The problem is just like that, just like this. That side is carrying tension, but this side is not carrying tension.
如果像你这样拉的时候，只有一侧受力，它就会不平衡。
Then these strands here on this side, they're carrying all the load, so they'll become a lot weaker.
就是像你这样分开的时候，只有拉这里，就只有它在负重，然后它会在转折处让它变得很脆弱。
So to try and balance that, what we do is
所以我们试着让它这两股的受力是平均的，现在就要把它绳子埋进去。
over here. So another thing actually for later is there's two ways of preparing yourself on this part. Is one is to have your fib open and find your point. We'll talk about this point in a minute, but you can find your point and have your fib ready, then add the rope.
他说待会会有一些练习，就是因为要把绳子平开没有那么容易，然后要停在中间没有那么容易。
Or you can add the rope first. Just depends on what you prefer.
然后看你觉得是先把导绳器塞好，再把绳子接上去比较舒服，还是先把绳子接好再开始塞导绳器，你会觉得比较舒服？
You can add that first and then come back and do this. So, I do either way. This part, I mentioned earlier about looking for the center in the crop and the D. So we'll look for that point again, right? So we're going to choose where the rope's synced. So a little bit closer so you guys can see. So basically, so we find our point where they cross over here. The distance from there to there is basically, we kind of pull it tight that we're not distorting that one. Okay, so when I'm pulling that real tight, you can see that the shape has kind of changed.
就是当你拉很紧的时候，那一条比较美丽的绳子，它形状会被挤压
So
到，
that
会
one's
变
got a
形。
nice V, and that one's kind of become more like round.
然后说有一束拉紧之后，它的 V 会比较尖，一束会比较开这样。
But if you pull them back nice and if I get them balanced, you can see there's a nice V and there's a nice sort of V.
然后你找到它变回比较正常的 V 型的点之后，
Can everyone see that? So when you preparing to do the bury over here, we get this part nice and balanced. If we start off and this is too high up, and we do our bury there, then that will always be carrying too much tension.
好，就是如果你把那个埋场的点啊找得太靠近绳点的话，那一区的绳子还没有进入到完美的 V 型就编进去，它一样会受很大的力。
So maybe just pass that around so everyone can have a close look at it.
然后它传下去让大家看。
Start this way, and then I'll go the other way.
在第二个。